This video is a summary of the assignment module. It's located at cds130.org/assignment. This module covers a number of topics, the most important of which is assignment, and then I also introduce the clear command in MATLAB, the meaning of a semicolon at the end of the line, and the comment character. And I also cover how to form valid names to which you assign values to. Of course, the motivation is that one of the most frequent programming operations is assignment. And I start out this module by asking this question. Your instructor asks you to write x is equal to x plus 1 on the board, or your instructor writes this on the board and asks you what you can conclude. Now, according to algebra rules, you move this x over to here and you get 0 is equal to 1. And you would say, well, this is invalid, this is nonsense, it's not a valid equation. Now in programming, this statement actually makes sense. In programming, this is read as assign to the letter x whatever the value of x is now and add 1. And that's what I'll talk about here, is why that makes sense. Now, previously in spreadsheets versus programming, I talked a little bit about assignment in a spreadsheet. And in a spreadsheet you have cells that have labels of rows that go by numbers and columns that go by letters. So columns are vertical structures. And when you enter a number in to a cell, to cell A1, you're telling the spreadsheet, assign the number 1 to the cell A1. Assign the number 2 to cell B2. And then here, what you've done is you've said, assign the value of whatever A1 is now, plus whatever B1 is now, to cell C1. So I've assigned to C1 the value of A1 plus the value of B1. Now A1 and B1 can vary, and so that's why we call them variables. Here I just put in a particular number, but there's no reason I couldn't have set A equal to 10 and B equal to 12. And if I did that, I would see C1 update to 22. Okay, so now going back to the assignment versus the equal sign. In MATLAB, the equal character, what we know as the equal character, is used for assignment. And so, as a joke here, we have the equal sign does not equal, or the assignment sign does not equal the equal sign. And you can see why some languages don't use the equal sign for assignment, because it's confusing. They'll use a symbol like semicolon, a colon equals, or an arrow. I think this is the most clear way of expressing assignment, is to say to A1 assign, so this arrow is pointing to A1, assign the value 1.0. And then here I reiterate what I said above, is that the reason that languages use a different symbol for assignment is to avoid confusion, because if somebody read this statement and didn't know it was a computer program, they would just simply follow the rules of algebra and come up with this. A1 minus A1 is equal to 1.0, and then 0 is equal to 1.1. 0 is equal to 1.0. And they would conclude that this equation does not make much sense because it comes up with something that's invalid. But as I said, this is a valid programming statement. And it's maybe unfortunate that MATLAB chose to use this equal sign, because mathematicians and computer programmers are sometimes one and the same, and they always have to adjust to decide whether an equation that they're looking at is a math equation or a computer equation, or computer expression, excuse me. Okay, when you type in, when you assign numbers to variables in MATLAB, the amount of white space that you put between the equal signs and the variables is optional. And you can put as much as you want. So here I've said A1 equals 1 with no space. And then here I've done A1 space equals space 1. Then here I put lots of space. And they all do the same thing. So let me flip over to my MATLAB command line. This may look different than the one that you use in class, but it's a command line nonetheless, and it's a command line that MATLAB knows how to interpret. So here I do A1 is equal to 1. It reads that command and it says, oh, this is what you told me. You told me A1 is equal to 1. And so it just kind of plays it back to you, just repeats it back to you. Do that here with more spaces. I said A is equal to 1. I can also say A1 is equal to 1. And then I can also do what's called interrogating MATLAB. I could do that by just typing in the letter A, A1, and then hitting enter. And when I do that, it says, well, he didn't assign A1 to be anything, so I'm just going to tell him what it is now. So you could probably guess what happens now. I'm going to ask MATLAB, what is B? And I haven't told MATLAB what I want B to be yet, and so it's going to respond, I don't know, essentially. Undefined function or variable B. So let me define it. Let me assign the number 2 to B. And now it tells me B is equal to 2. And now if I type B, I'm asking it what's B, and he says, well, you told me it was 2, and that's what I'm going to tell you it is. Now, sometimes it can be a little bit annoying to have MATLAB always tell you what you just told him. So, as before, I said A1 was equal to 1, and it said, you told me A1 is equal to 1. That can get a little bit repetitive, and to suppress that, you can just put a semicolon after you make an assignment. So now I did that, and MATLAB just gives me another prompt. It says, do more things. So I can do B is equal to 10, semicolon. And now if I just happen to want to know what the value is, I just type the letter B, and it will tell me B is equal to 10. Now you'll probably notice that previously I assigned B to be the value of 2, and then I assigned it to be the value of 10. And what happens is MATLAB updates itself. It says, well, earlier you said B was 2, now you said it was 10. And now if you ask me what it is, I'm going to tell you what the last thing that you told me it was, which was 10. And it forgets that you ever told it that B was equal to 2. And so this module is about assignment, but you can also do reassignment. I can reassign A to be equal to 19, and now MATLAB has forgotten that A1 was 1 and it uses the value that I told it last. Okay, so that's the end of the line semicolon. You'll want to remember this when you start writing programs that are very long, because the amount of output displayed on the screen here will get kind of excessive and you'll have to scroll up and down to figure out what's going on. And so as you learn to program, you'll learn where to put these semicolons and when to use them and when not to use them. And the choice depends on how much output you want to see on the screen. Okay, so this is an example. Assign a variable A1 to the value of 20. Okay, A1 is equal to 20. Actually, before I do that, let me introduce you to the clear command. MATLAB knows about the variables A1, B, and A because I've assigned them values. Now suppose I've forgotten what variables I've assigned values to, and I want to tell MATLAB, forget everything you know, forget everything I told you. You type in the command clear. So right now thinks A1 is 19, B1 is that, and A is that, because I've assigned them values. Now if I type in clear and ask it what A is, it says it's not defined. You haven't assigned it anything yet. Same thing for B, and the same thing for A1. They're all undefined. And this clear command I typically do at the very start of a session or the very start of a program in MATLAB, just to make sure that there isn't any variable definition hanging around that I forgot about. Okay, variable A1 equal to 20. I'll assign a variable B1 equals to A1 plus 13. And MATLAB will read the statement as assigned to the value B1, assigned to the variable B1, the value of A1, which is 20, plus 13. And so the response should be 33. Now I want to tell it B1 is equal to B1 plus 12. And I should get 33 plus 12, which is 45. Now you should be able to just read this and do this on paper. You'll have to do this on quizzes and exams. And then I asked, could you do the above three instructors? Could you do the above three instructors in Excel? And the answer is yes. To do that, you would enter 20 into cell A1, and then you would enter this into cell B1. But then you could not reassign the cell B1 to its current value plus 12 by entering B1 plus 12. So the numbers were 12. So the first step was so let's try and do this in Excel. Assign to A1 the value of 20, B1 the value of A1, so I'd say it's equal to A1 plus 13, and I get that. But now, how do I tell it I want B1 to be whatever it is now plus 12? In a spreadsheet, that's not possible. And so this is one of the powers of programming languages, is that you can reassign variables in an easy way. Of course, in a spreadsheet you could do it, but you would end up having to write a program to do it. So far I've been giving names to variables like A1, which is 20, and B1, which was last assigned the value of 45. And you're probably asking, well, what are the valid names that I could name a variable? What's the valid list of things that I could put on the left-hand side of the assignment operator? And the general rule is that you can use only characters that are letters, numbers, and the underscore. So A1 is okay, all of these other ones are okay. And you should avoid starting a variable name with a letter, with a number. So 1A or 333B is not valid. So I can do 1A equal to 3, and I get an error message because MATLAB doesn't know that what I really wanted was to name my variable 1A, and so it just says this is unexpected MATLAB expression. This 1 signaled to MATLAB that it was thinking I wanted to do a math operation. So for example, 1 times 2. And so it read the number 1, and then it said, I expect like a multiplication or a division after that, and I didn't get it. Therefore, I'm confused, and I'm going to show you an error message. Okay, so these are the general rules. Variable name may not start with the number 1a. It's not allowed. You want to keep variable names shorter than 64 characters. Actually, you want to keep them usually less than 10 characters. You can imagine there has to be a limit on the number of characters that are allowed, because each character that I type, each ASCII character, as we covered before, like the letter D and the letter A, for example, DA is equal to 1. Each one of these characters is represented internally in the computer as a bit pattern that's 8 bits. And so when I told MATLAB I want to assign this the value of 1, internally it had to have enough memory to memorize this. And each character takes 8 bits to hold in memory. But the practical reason is not that you'll run out of memory. 8 bits is small in comparison to the billion and trillions of bits that you have available on a typical computer. The reason is that humans have to read your programs, and if you have a variable name that's super long, it's as annoying to read as a sentence or a word that is very, very long. Okay, variable names may not have a space in it, so I cannot say Bob variable equal to 1. And the problem was that I had a space here. If I really want to make an expression, I would do this. I'd say Bob variable is equal to that. And notice that MATLAB didn't mind that I misspelled variable. So now I have 2 variables that are almost spelled the same. So I'm going to call this one 2. Bob variable is 2, and the correctly spelled 1 is 1. And variable names may not have a hyphen in it, because this hyphen means subtraction in MATLAB. And if you ever want to make sure that the variable name that you choose is valid, so if I want to do my kittens equals a 10, but I'm afraid that I might get an error message, what I can do is type in isVar name, my kittens, and if MATLAB says 1, that means thumbs up, it means true, it means my kittens is a valid variable name. And so this is like asking MATLAB, is my kittens a valid variable name? Okay, and then there is other variable recommendations. These words, if, pi, for, and, matrix, and array, all mean something to MATLAB. So let me clear everything out. And now if I type in pi, MATLAB says, you didn't tell me what pi was, but I already knew that. And I'm going to tell you what I think it is, 3.1416. Now, what I can do is type in pi is equal to 2.0, and it'll say, okay, fine, pi is now equal to 2. Now somebody could come along and read your program and then see the statement pi times 2 and type enter, and they would say, well, that's not expected, because his understanding, this other person's understanding, is pi is 3.14, and now MATLAB tells me that pi times 2 is 4. And so he would think that MATLAB is doing something wrong, but what's really happened is that you've redefined something, a common term, to be something else. And so you don't want to do that, just to avoid confusion. The other variables you don't want to use are if, pi, for, and, matrix, and array, because these all mean something special. And if you ever want to double check, you can just say which pi. And when I do that, it says it's a built-in number. So this is the name of a file, and MATLAB has told me that normally this variable means something that's defined in this file. Okay, so then I have some examples here that you can go through. The two key things that people forget about are that you're not allowed to put a number in front of, the first character is not allowed to be a number, and that spaces aren't allowed. Now you'll see in a lot of my programs comment characters. And so suppose I wanted to, so let me clear, and then let me just move this up on the screen by hitting enter a few times. Suppose I wanted to give you an example of a program. I would say the following adds two numbers. Now, MATLAB doesn't know how to interpret this statement. It's really just a comment for you guys to read. But I want it to appear in the program, or somewhere alongside of here. So for example, suppose I wanted you to cut and paste this program here. And you could do that like this. So I hit copy, and then I hit paste, and then it's as if I typed in all those commands into MATLAB, one by one, line by line. Now, this is not a valid statement. So if I try doing this, it will say, I don't know, did you try and define a variable with spaces, or what are you asking me? But if I do this, MATLAB says, okay, everything after that comment character is not for me to read, and I'm going to ignore it and not give you an error. And so you'll see these comment characters in the example programs I give you. And the reason is just so that I can explain what the program is doing in the same place as the actual program itself. It would be, one option would be to move this stuff, into the text up here or down in another place. But having it all in one place, next side by side, is convenient. So for example, and when you write longer programs, you're encouraged to put comments so that when you come back to it a week or a month later, you can figure out what you did more quickly, and if somebody else reads your program, they can figure out what you did by just reading the human comments in addition to the programming statements. I've already covered the clear command. Okay, and then on the quiz, you'll be expected to be able to answer questions like 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. And you'll need to do that on paper without using the actual MATLAB program.